What if everything you learned about dominance and leadership came from observing traumatized animals in cages? While the internet worships alpha males and lone wolves, actual science has been screaming the opposite for decades. The disturbing truth. The researcher who invented the alpha wolf concept spent his final years begging people to forget it. And here's what'll blow your mind. Real wolves in the wild don't have alphas at all. They have something far more powerful that changes everything about strength, success, and what it actually means to win. Stay until the end because this will shatter every lie you've been sold. Why science destroyed the alpha male fantasy decades ago. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth that's been hiding in plain sight. David Meck, the world's leading wolf expert, published his research in the 1970s debunking his own earlier work. He discovered that wild wolf packs aren't organized around brutal dominance hierarchies. They're families. The alpha is simply a parent leading their own offspring. No violent takedowns. No constant challenges for supremacy. Just cooperation, affection, and natural family structure until the young wolves mature and start their own packs. But here's where it gets darker. The original alpha wolf studies? They observed wolves in captivity, unrelated wolves forced into enclosures together. Imagine kidnapping random humans, locking them in a warehouse for years, then claiming the resulting violence and hierarchy represents natural human society. That's exactly what happened. We built an entire philosophy of masculinity on a laboratory artifact, on trauma responses, on animals in crisis, and the gurus knew. The self-help industry, the pickup artist community, the corporate leadership consultants, they all had access to the corrected science. But corrected science doesn't sell courses. Insecurity does. So they kept pushing the myth while scientists were literally publishing retractions. Follow the money. Who profits when men believe they must constantly prove dominance? Who wins when males are pitted against each other in endless status competitions? Power Law 7 teaches, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. The alpha male industry is a masterclass in this. They took flawed science, repackaged it as ancient wisdom, and convinced millions of men to pay for the privilege of becoming worse versions of themselves. Meanwhile, the guys who actually understand power, they're building networks, forming alliances, playing a completely different game. Your first practical action: spend one day observing men who self-identify as alphas. Notice the constant need for validation, the fragile ego behind the aggressive exterior, the loneliness disguised as independence. Now watch actual leaders who command real respect. See how they operate differently? That's the gap between performing dominance and embodying power. Real wolves don't need to announce their status because their value is obvious through action. They protect, they provide. They make the pack stronger. Fake alphas need to constantly remind everyone they're in charge because deep down, they know it's theater. And theater only works until someone calls the bluff. Type real in the comments. If you're seeing through the performance, hit that like button. If this is exposing uncomfortable truths, subscribe. Because what comes next connects to an even bigger conspiracy about keeping men weak. How lone wolf mythology keeps you isolated and powerless. Here's what nobody tells you about lone wolves in nature. They're failures, not heroes, not mysterious warriors, just animals that lost their families or got kicked out of their packs. And they don't survive long. Lone wolves are malnourished, vulnerable to predators, and usually die young. In the wild, going solo isn't a choice. It's a death sentence you endure until you find a new pack or perish trying. Yet some modern culture turned biological catastrophe into aspirational identity. Forums full of men celebrating their isolation as enlightened superiority. I don't need anyone. Relationships are weakness. Better alone than compromised. It sounds philosophical until you realize these same men are depressed, aimless, and wondering why life feels empty. The lone wolf aesthetic is just loneliness with better marketing. Look at Hannibal Barca. He spent 15 years terrorizing Rome with an army of mercenaries from different cultures who had every reason to betray him. How did he keep them loyal? Strategic emotional intelligence. He learned their languages, shared their hardships, fought alongside them. When his soldiers saw him sleeping on the ground in winter, refusing special treatment, they'd march through hell for him. That's not weakness. That's weaponized connection. Power Law 14 warns, pose as a friend, work as a spy, but notice it still involves social interaction. The law isn't become a hermit. It's navigate social structures intelligently. True power players understand that influence requires relationships. Even manipulation needs targets. The completely isolated have no leverage. They're just irrelevant. Your second practical action: audit your life honestly. Are you strategically selective about relationships, or just terrified of vulnerability? Real strength is building a network of capable allies while maintaining autonomy. What you call staying independent might just be fear of rejection with a philosophical coat of paint. The system loves lone wolves. Isolated men don't organize. They don't build movements. They don't threaten power structures. They just scroll through content about being strong alone while their potential dies unrealized. Every minute you spend romanticizing isolation is a minute someone else spends building the coalition that'll leave you behind. Wolves hunt in packs for a reason. Lions form prides for a reason. Humans built civilizations through cooperation for a reason. Evolution isn't sentimental. It keeps what works. And radical individualism, that's not on the winning side of natural selection. Drop pack in the comments if you understand that strategic alliance beats solo performance. Like this video if it's challenging beliefs you needed to question. Subscribe because the next part reveals how to weaponize this knowledge before your competition does. What? History's real. Power players know that alpha bros don't. You want to know what separates actual conquerors from internet tough guys? Emotional intelligence weaponized at scale. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, 5'6", not physically imposing, yet he inspired such fanatical loyalty that his soldiers literally marched back to him after he escaped from exile. How? He remembered names. He visited wounded troops personally. He promoted based on merit rather than nobility. He made men feel seen, valued, part of something transcendent. Compare that to the modern alpha male playbook. Suppress emotion, never admit weakness, dominate every interaction. That's not leadership. That's insecurity cosplaying as strength. Real leaders throughout history understood that humans are emotional creatures. Trying to lead them through pure dominance is like trying to pilot a ship by intimidating the ocean. Primate research backs this up. Franz de Waal studied chimpanzee hierarchies for decades and found something fascinating. The most successful alphas aren't the most aggressive. They're the best politicians. They form coalitions. They resolve conflicts. They share resources strategically. The brutal chimps who try to rule through fear alone, they get overthrown by alliances of weaker chimps who band together. Even in the animal kingdom, collaboration beats domination. Power Law 33 states, discover each man's thumbscrew, but you can't discover anything about anyone if you're performing stoic indifference 24/7. Influence requires understanding. Understanding requires engagement. The alpha male who refuses to show interest in others has already lost the power game. He just doesn't know it yet. Your third practical action: identify someone whose support you need. Instead of impressing them with displays of status, ask them a genuine question about something they care about. Listen deeply. Watch how the dynamic shifts. This isn't manipulation. This is advanced power dynamics that performative dominance will never reach. Queen Elizabeth I ruled England for 45 years in an era when women weren't supposed to rule at all. She did it through strategic vulnerability mixed with calculated strength. She let her advisors feel needed while maintaining final authority. She showed emotion when it served her goals and steel when necessary. If a queen in the 1500s understood that power requires nuance, maybe modern men should pay attention. The greatest conspiracy? Making men believe that emotional range is weakness. Men with emotional intelligence build empires. Men without it build nothing but walls around themselves. Walls that eventually become prisons. Comment intelligence if you're ready to play power games at a higher level. Smash that like button if this content is expanding your understanding. Subscribe because the final part shows you exactly how to apply this before others catch on. how to actually win while everyone else chases fake strength. So where does this leave you? You now know that alpha males are scientific fiction, that lone wolves die alone, that every man you admire who actually accomplished something did it through networks, alliances, and strategic emotional intelligence. But here's your edge. Most men will never learn this. They'll keep buying courses on dominance, keep isolating themselves in the name of independence, keep playing a game with rules designed to make them lose. Meanwhile, you can play the real game. While they're flexing on social media, you're quietly building relationships that matter. While they're alienating potential allies with unnecessary aggression, you're earning loyalty through calibrated authenticity. They're reading the script. You just learned the language it was translated from. Consider Saladin, the Muslim sultan who defeated the Crusaders. When he recaptured Jerusalem, he could have massacred Christians like they'd massacred Muslims a century before. Instead, he allowed safe passage, showed mercy, demonstrated honor. The result? Even his enemies wrote about him with respect. His legend grew stronger than any brutality could have achieved. That's not weakness. That's understanding that reputation is power and mercy can be the most aggressive move on the board. Here's the deep conspiracy. The alpha male industrial complex was amplified by algorithms because it creates perfect consumers. Insecure men who buy product after product, seeking transformation that never comes. Why? Because they're chasing a biologically impossible ideal. You can't win a game whose rules contradict human nature. The house always wins because the game is rigged. Your fourth practical action, in the next 48 hours. Do something radically anti-alpha. Ask for help with something real. Admit ignorance on a topic. Show public gratitude to someone who supported you. Notice how this doesn't diminish your power. Watch how it paradoxically makes you more respected, more human, more dangerous. Because now, you're operating in reality, while everyone else is trapped in fantasy. You don't need to roar. You need to think. Don't need to dominate. You need to influence. Don't need to be alone at the top. You need a network that puts you there and keeps you there. Real wolves understand this instinctively. Intelligent humans learn it consciously. And once you do, you're playing a different game entirely. The men who rule the world aren't the loudest. They're the ones who understood early that power is social, contextual, and requires exactly the skills the alpha male myth tells you to suppress. Emotional intelligence, strategic vulnerability, coalition building, long-term relationship cultivation. These aren't weaknesses. They're weapons that most men will never pick up because they're too busy performing strength they don't actually have. Type awake in the comments if you're ready to leave the matrix of fake masculinity. Hit like so. This reaches more men who need to hear it. Subscribe for content that keeps revealing how the real game is played. And share this with someone still trapped in alpha mythology. You might just change their life.